We are live. Hi, I'm Whitlock along with my good friend Thomas Mangum here to talk about connecting and really getting somewhere. Thomas, are we going to get somewhere today?
If we're talking about some of the very best and worst opening lines, yeah, we probably will.
That's it. As a matter of fact, you got the memo. Today's topic, the best and worst opening lines. So do we get to spend the whole time talking about horrible lines we've heard, or are we leading with good ones?
Take your pick. Name it. We're going to get there either way.
You know, we're going to get to the bad ones, so stand by for the bad ones and the joking and the fun there. And first, talk to us about a good opening line.
A good opening line, my favorite opening line is a huge, warm smile. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, no, that's not what I meant, Thomas. I meant, come on, man, give me a good line. And I am, because I think one of the best opening lines, and I just want to, I mean, you know, there you go and done, is if you walk in, think about this for a moment. Actually, let me rephrase this. If you're watching now, you can even just close your eyes and do a little bit of visualization. Think about when you were at a networking event. Think about when you were at a networking event and recall who caught your attention. Seriously, as people walked in the room and they were around the room, who were the people that caught your attention? I'd be willing to bet it was the ones with the warm, authentic smiles, those that you perceived as being particularly confident. Now, you might have remembered some of the, you know, really super nervous folks, but who did you really want to go up and talk to? Who were you gravitated toward? You may not have spoken to them, but couldn't you tell something about that individual already? It was your gut. It was something that you can't even logically get in your head, because it's about the way that they were being. Not just putting an artificial smile, because there's plenty of folks that I bet you think that you've encountered at a networking event or an event where networking is taking place, and you remember fake smiles, because there's a difference. We can tell. Trust your gut. This is what Warren and I have been looking to help you with. It's not just the doing. Trust your gut on that. If you're going in there, it's the whole reason we talk about going someplace you really want to enjoy, talking with people that you really want to talk with. So when it comes down to the best opening line, sometimes the best opening line, it actually isn't a line. It's the way that you're being when you're there. A smile. You have this broad, warm smile across your face. You don't have a big, goofy smile like me, you know, or Warren has got a big smile, and he always makes me laugh with his smile. But it's anything. It's just something warm. What do you think about that?
You know, pretty goofy. I don't know about this smile stuff, man. I need something I can do. Oh, wait a minute. That is something you can do. When you're thinking that, hey, you know, Thomas, I walk into the room and I don't feel anything, or this magic potion gobbledygook stuff that you're telling me, I just don't get it. I walk in there and it's a bunch of people that I don't know and don't want to talk to, and oh, guess what? You're going to get horrible results when you have that kind of an attitude. If you do go in and do maybe the action item here is, if you're feeling that way, is gut check, because that's the thing. Stop, take a deep breath, look around the room and say, where's that person that Thomas was talking about? Where is the that one person that stands out? Now, we know for sure. I mean, I'm normal. When you said, what do you notice first? I'm thinking, well, the hot person, of course. But the same thing is, there's different kinds of heat. There's hot, good looking, and then, you know, which is an obvious answer here. And then there's the heat. Where's the person that's, when they come in, they get people congregating around them? I have a friend who does not dress up to go to anything. And in fact, the last time I saw him, he had just drove in from 4 days of camping. And I remember noticing, he must have made it home and took a shower, because he had jeans on, and not what I see him most of the time, even in public events, shorts and a T-shirt. And so it looked like he'd bothered to dress up, but he was the most dishevelingly underdressed person in the room, and it was a group of professionals. And here's the interesting thing: is everybody gravitated to him. Now I knew him better than anybody else in the room, so at first at first glance, I say, well, that's just me because I want to see my friend. Then, but then I noticed that people are coming up to him, talking to him. He's got that energy. He's also one of the organizers of the event, and that's another thing to be checking for. Who's in charge? Who's running things? Who gets things done? Who do you see dart out and talk to somebody outside the room and then come back in? That's somebody that's making something happen. Now, there's many reasons why that may not be the best person to approach at any time, and there's also some really good thinking says that maybe that's the best person to talk to, and it just don't expect that if you run into that person, they're going to have time for a nice in-depth conversation with you. What they're going to do is hand you off to somebody else because they are really busy at that time. But those are two tricks I'd look at to say, who's got people coming around them and who's very busy. And busy in let's take a luncheon. I'm thinking of one I just recently went to, and at the luncheon there were 20 people tops. The luncheon was catered, everything was taken care of, but there was a person in charge and busy that worked for the company, the location where we were meeting, and she was, well-dressed, busy, doing whatever, and end up running the meeting. And when I went in, I could tell that immediately who that person was. We did not have a long, engaged conversation. I said hello. She started getting me introduced to somebody, and then she was off to the next thing, which is great. That's what you're there for. It's to meet people.
We're jumping into very specifically, sharing what the best and worst opening lines are today. And Warren's really right. It's very important that you understand is that there are some parts of the process and the flow where you can leverage your time. And so one of the things that we've been doing over the past couple of weeks and will continue to do is break it down into pieces. So in case you're joining the show today and you're jumping in, oh, wow, that's a really great headline. I do want to know what's the best opening lines, what's the worst opening lines. Keep in mind these are tools, strategies, ways of being that we'll discuss today. And remember that it's not the end all. There are all these other pieces. What kind of reconnaissance do you do? Do you go to places that you enjoy and not enjoy? Who do you approach? And we'll handle that. As you get questions that come up, and in case you missed the other shows, go ahead and put comments. Go ahead and put comments on this show and say, hey, listen, Warren, you mentioned something about the best person to speak to. Can you guys answer that on the show or point me in the right direction? We're happy to do that. We want to do that for you. So.
Right, and again, in that case, I'm the busy person. I'm here. I'm doing the show, and you say, "What were you saying?" Don't think that just because hell, that's the guys on the show. They're not going to answer me. Yeah, we are. That's what we're here for. If we have any expertise in this at all, it comes from doing a lot of it and happily helping somebody else out. Now, if you're looking for, gosh, I watched that show and I sent a message to Warren and he didn't connect and invite me to coffee and help me find new business and introduce me to the love of my life. No, I'm not that I don't want to do that, but I'm busy. I probably won't. Desire is there. That's not the problem. It's I'm human. I can't possibly do all the things I want to do. However, like any other busy person, ask me a question. I'm happy to give you a straight answer. If you say, hey, I'm looking for something nobody else gets, I don't have any money, I don't want to put any time in it, and I want you to do it all for me, and oh yeah, by the way, can you pay me while you're at it? Well then, I may not answer that question, but if it's reasonable, okay, if you're trying, we're going to do that. You're gonna ask?
I'm going to tell you, hey, listen, I want to tell a little secret to you guys listening, and Warren, turn off your earphone. You're not allowed to hear this one. So guys, okay. Listen. So listen, if you're in Las Vegas, and I know Warren's not listening right now, but if you get to Las Vegas and you have like access to a private club or something like that, don't tell Warren, but he does like a good steakhouse. It's probably going to be the Wynn though, because Warren likes really, really good food. So maybe a Wynn, maybe the MGM, something like that. That was really cool steakhouses. hey, he can be influenced. That's all I got to say. But you got to treat him right. Warren, you can get back on the line now.
Oh, okay, yes. And so, like I was saying, those are the places you want to take me if we're going for coffee.
You heard?
Oh, did that tie into something you were saying?
Oh, anyway.
All right. That's what I'm thinking about. I've got the perfect secret here for what the best opening line is, and that is that any line that looks like it or sounds like it's a line is a bad line. So the best opening line is one that doesn't look like an opening line. And in fact, if you're thinking that person couldn't possibly be trying to network with me, then if that's what you're thinking, then you know that person's got a good opening line. It's natural, it's them, and it starts a conversation. Anything can start a conversation. You can, drop something on your foot, and it can be a conversation. There are some lines that'll get you closer to having the kind of conversation you want, but best way to do that is to test, because the lines I use may not work for you.
Well, I mean,
let's be an ugly old white guy. You might have to say something else.
Well, let's break that down, Warren, because this is where it comes back to, and it's really interesting because I occasionally get someone, and sometimes I'm reluctant to say the smile thing, but I say coming in with a warm heart and smile and seeing people is great, and it's just the way that you are being when you walk in that room. I promise you, when I get to work with people one-on-one, especially in San Diego, and we get to physically do this, not just on the phone, but physically do this, is transformational. It really is, because you get it when you're out there, and we can do a little work with your body and the way that you're being before you go into an event. Now, maybe you're the person watching that doesn't have social anxiety, but I like working with guys that have some social anxiety, because there's such amazing breakthroughs. It doesn't just break through with networking experiences; it breaks through in their life and just how they go about life. So when I talk about the smile thing, it isn't just being like, oh, don't want the big smile. Yes, I'm all great. No, it's got to be congruent with who you are, and let's leave it at this, so we don't get overthinky about it. Well, what's a right smile? What do you mean with how you have to be? Oh my goodness, just put a smile on. Seriously, think about your niece, if you like her. Think about your little baby niece, or think about something that warms your heart. Listen to a little comedy. I love comedy. I like Pandora, Pandora.com. I'll put it on the comedy channel when I'm driving or going over to someplace. It just puts me in a space. I'm funny, I'm lighthearted, I'm goofy, and I walk in, and people kind of wonder, like, why are you in such a good mood? You're at a networking event. Duh. I mean, whatever gets you in the right place. So that's the first part of it. And for a person like Warren and I, it is natural for us to think about or to always be saying something. But here's the thing. Most of our clients probably a little bit more introverted, a little bit less talky than us. Very, very likely. That's typically who we attract. And here's the power of that. You don't have to say a lot of words. You can simply be in that room. So if you ever wondered, oh my gosh, what's the best opening line? And you're thinking, oh, I'm always worried about what to say next. Maybe you don't have to say much. Maybe it's people that come up to you and say, hey, what brought you here? And then they're asking you questions. How fun is that, right? Now let's shift gears. So from the being, seriously, what are some things that you could say? Well, instead of giving you exactly the thing that you can ask, I'm going to give you some places to focus in on. People love to be acknowledged. In fact, if you ever study masculine and feminine energies, men and women, things like that, generally speaking, especially guys, we live to be acknowledged and recognized. It's just core to us. And it's like, in some way, shape, or form, acknowledged, acknowledged, acknowledged. Now, really, oh man, I shouldn't have opened it up into male and female, masculine and feminine. Let's just say humans for today. We'll keep it for a different episode to dive into the differences. But human in general, there's nothing wrong with recognizing. So you go up to someone. What caught your attention? Okay? And this is depending upon your personality. I guarantee you Warren is going to say something different than me, than Larry, than Bob, than Sally, than Dana. You guys are all going to say something different. When I say recognize, what is it that you recognize? I'll give you some examples that I've used, and then you'll use something that's congruent with who you are as a person, what your comfort level is, and whatever. It's okay to take a risk when this happens, because if you come from authenticity, meaning if you come from genuinely you thought this was awesome about that person, you can't go wrong. It's never wrong. All right? And so you often see, I see women complimenting women, oftentimes, or women complimenting men on maybe something that they're wearing. There's nothing wrong with that to open a conversation. Hey, that's a really cool looking jacket, you know? Or I was like, wow, there's some amazing shoes. I don't often hear men saying that to women, or men saying it to others. I just don't see that. However, it can be, you may see someone and go, oh, that's a really interesting last name. Oh, hey, how you doing? My name is Thomas. Hey, well, this may sound kind of crazy, but your last name caught my attention, or your first name caught your attention. But by chance, are you Croatian? You know, or that's me. That is completely Warren's watched me do this probably. It's so congruent and me. That may not be you, but here's the point. It's something that caught my attention. Genuinely, I'm interested in it. I'm a geek about that. I love to ask those kind of questions. Did I say, what do you do, as my opening line? I did not. Did I ask them, it's like, hey, would you like to make more money? Hey, do you have a problem with more, with not enough time? Those are not my opening lines. Those are horrible opening lines. And by the way, if those work for you, God bless you. Use them. But that ain't for me, and I'm pretty sure it's not for Warren either. We're not really.
Well, you know, I've hung out with that crowd a bit and learned some of it, and as a matter of fact, there was a persuasion conference held once where most everybody in the room was offended that this guy was even invited to attend. And it started it off, and you know, you wonder about the ulterior motives, because he also sold more than anybody else, because he is this way. But he came in, he was loud, he told us there was only one right way to do things, and you know, we all suck, and he had the best answers, and then went through all sorts of persuasion techniques. Point being is, most of the room hated him, but he still outsold anybody else as far as the business was concerned. So we wondered about that, but then the guy running the conference did something I didn't expect. Stood up in front of the group and said, you know, when we're studying persuasion, we have to study this. We have to know what this is. And so I've kind of taken that's my same approach to it. I like playing around with the lines and finding out whether or not somebody could, hey, want to make more money? You know, have you moved into a new house lately?
And notice we're talking opening. And Warren, you said something really powerful there. We're taking one little slice, guys. This is one slice of the best opening. Open, people, open. See, you can't always be closing until you're opening. So I actually go with
and most of the people that subscribe to doing that kind of thing, that get told that, or here I'm going to give you the best opening line, or here was a question, and let's see, when was the last time? You know, can you somebody ask you what you do and you answer, can you imagine going home and finding that you now live in the most perfect house ever? I help people find the perfect house. You know, and I made that up on the spot, but you know, it's that sort of line. And you know what? That works. And I sat and played with what am I going to say and how am I going to do this. I tried a couple of different things, and like you say, it's not me.
Yeah.
And sometimes I beat myself up and say, gosh, I'm not using that perfect line. I'm doing something else. I get into an elevator with somebody and they say, and you see them just clenching up and not being able to say anything at all. And they'd like to meet people, and they notice that I got a name tag on, that I'm there for the same group as them. And I'm doing the same thing, naturally going like, but I'll just stay quiet and not say anything. And I found it late, I've been playing with the lines of, thanks for the lift, or I see you're going to 12, can you drop me at 8? Thank you very much.
It's perfect for you.
It's so nice of you to hold the elevator for me. Everything from a sincere compliment to just comically, saying something about the fact that we're on the same elevator together. And I'll be danged, out of 10 times doing it, I'll have 2 or 3 interesting conversations. It's not a perfect opening line. It's not a good opening line. It's an opening line if I say something. And I guess that's a really key point we have to make. It's not an opening line unless you open.
Wonderful. I think that's really beautiful. Let's take that example of that elevator one, because that's a really good one. Is the elevator one, and it happens to every single one of us. And here's what I've in my studies of masterful networkers, and they may not even be, they don't even claim to be a masterful networker. It's just someone that's like, wow, that's really good. They're really good connectors. They're connecting with each other. Let's use the elevator example. So you're in the elevator, and and like anyone else, I mean, sometimes it's just like, I'm not in the mood to connect, and I won't connect, and feel okay doing that, because sometimes that's the case. Typically, you wouldn't go to a networking event and not really be wanting to connect. We've covered that in the first a couple of lessons ago on this show. It's in an elevator, a place where, like, well, I'm not always on, and sometimes I just want to look at the ceiling. The real truth of the matter is, I'm looking to ignore you. It's true. So you don't have to always be on. So let's say that you actually do want to say something, and I've actually used this quote line, which wasn't a line at the time, but it was authentic, and that was this. Just like you, Warren, I saw someone there, and I actually wanted to ask something, and I was blank. I didn't know what to say, and I said, you know what? This is so weird, but I would love to ask you something, and I don't even know what to ask you. I'm like blank. I'm tired. I'm just hungry. But I know we're in the same event. And anyway, that's almost too many words. I think it was just like, I think my eyes caught their eyes, and they're like, I don't know what to say. and she got a huge laugh, and she goes, I totally get it. I'm hungry too. Hey, where are you from? And it just broke the ice. So a lot of times, and this is the trusting your gut. Whatever question is coming up, I challenge you to ask that question. I challenge you to ask that question, or to say that thing. It's not always a question, but it's something to say. It's like, man, it sounds totally crazy, but those are amazing shoes. And the reason I say that is I'm thinking, how often do you hear a guy comment on someone's shoes? You don't. But that's why I even prefaced it is, I feel weird at this, even saying this, but your shoes are really cool. Does that make sense? It's like a preparatory, I'm being self-deprecating.
I'm remembering a time I was flying across the country, way in the back of a big plane. I remember, and the plane was very full. And for some reason, there's this nicely dressed woman, professional, sitting next to the window, and I get the aisle seat, and there's a seat between us. And I just so much wanted to be her best friend. I really liked everything about her, what her business was. That's not part of the story, but it was fascinating. It was clear that I was talking about my family, and that there was in no way was I trying to talk to anything. And I had just had a book come out, and she was interested and wanted a copy of the book. And I said, so what's that? A 4-hour flight, and 3.5 of the hours I spent going like, don't say anything else. You've gone too far already. And sure enough, at the end of it, I said, is there some way to contact you or something? Because I really would like to give you a copy of my book. And she said no, and I felt like, oh, am I a stalker? What's wrong with this? When I think back of that now, it's, 10 years ago, I'm feeling like, it doesn't really matter. I'd have trouble remembering any of the details other than I certainly remember the feeling. And that I got a vibe that I was going too far and shouldn't say anything. And so what you were talking about, sometimes it doesn't work. That's just fine. And what I've come to learn is that, if I'm on the elevator, if I'm sitting next to somebody on the airport or whatever, especially if, I'm a big old guy, and I'm, now blocking exit from a younger woman, it's like I'm like aware of that. That's one of those kind of problems. But just as often I'll find myself talking to a beautiful 25-year-old woman and thinking like, why is she giving me the time of day to even say hello? And again, we're not talking about flirting or relationships or anything like that, just the fact that it's two people talking. And I guess what I'm getting from that is that I have that same feeling if I'm sharing the elevator with somebody I sort of know. Male, female, it doesn't matter. Just the idea that, should I talk, or somebody famous. I've you know, I can't think of a time I feel good about going up to a famous person and introducing myself because I wanted to meet them, because I wanted to be able to say, I've met Thomas Mangum. You know, and I have to tell you, the good ones have all been, because the better ones, because I don't remember any of them fondly. The better ones have been when I opened my mouth and said something. The ones that really hurt are when I said I don't want to say anything at all. Again, I think I learned from that old airplane incident. It felt good. You know, even though there was a big feeling of, oh no, am I stalking? Have I gone too far? What it is, it was what it was. It was okay. You know, I did the best I could in the situation, and that's going to be there. Just expect that, you know, a home run hitter is going to have a batting average way below 50%. You know, and well, you're going to do fantastic if 1 out of 4 times you open your mouth and say something, somebody responds, and it becomes one of those situations like you. I know how you feel. I'm tired too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, here's a good way to sum that. Is the best opening lines for you may be simply doing something. I'll say doing something, being something. Because you're going to learn from it. You're going to act, analyze, and adjust versus over-analyzing and never, ever doing anything. You are going to stick your foot in your mouth. I guarantee, if you're human, if you guys are listening, if you're a human listening, all right, then you're going to stick your foot in your mouth. You're going to say something goofy. You're going to say some friggin' brilliant things. But you're going to say something that is going to blow someone's mind. And the only way that's going to happen by simply being out there and doing it. And here's the powerful part here. It's not that it's the smoothest. The best connectors out there are not necessarily the smoothest. They're not the best wordsmiths necessarily. It's that whatever they say and whatever they ask is genuine. It is always genuine. The best, most brilliant connectors. So it's not the extrovert. I'm telling you right now, it's not introvert versus extrovert. It's not English is your first language, Spanish your second language. It isn't any of that stuff. It's genuine. You can be the goofiest, dorkiest person like Warren. Oh, I mean, you can.
Hey, you know, that dorky thing is a good way to throw in. Is we're recording this the day after Father's Day, and you know, I'm thinking about Dad, who I thought when I was a young, timid kid, you know, just had the masterful ability to talk to anyone. He was an adult and saying hello to people, or, you know, pumping gas and talking to. Oh, come to think of it, back then it was somebody was pumping gas for us back in the old days, and he struck up a conversation. I go like, wow, he could talk to anybody, and just thinking it was the coolest thing. And what I remember about Dad is that, you know, most of the time it was goofy. It was, you know, certainly by the time I was a teenager, I found out Dad's quality was he didn't care that he was goofy. He was going to talk to anybody. You know, I felt totally embarrassed quite often.
Think about it. He's remembered, and that's a powerful thing right there, because I think you know, novice networkers and connectors often, I always ask, like, hey, what's your objective at that event? And they go, oh, it's to find more clients and close more deals, or like close, and all these different things, and get more clients and leads. And it's like, well, you got to understand, it's a process. Sales is a process. It's not one event. It's not one thing. The entire thing, we're always selling ourselves, right? It's a process. So what if you got to a networking event, and just like Warren's dad, it's like he was being memorable. People are remembering him. And you can be remembered as goofy. That's not a bad thing. It's like, what is your personality? But he's genuine. You don't want to be remembered as the douche.
Well, you know, and you know, later in life, my dad was mom died. He was single. I went one time to deliver something to him in an event where he was at the church meeting with other people like him who were single, and you know, scary group. But you know, I'm going like, oh, thank goodness I'm married and happy and don't need to go to this thing. But what I remember from that group is that every time I turned around, Dad was saying about something where he was helping somebody. Yeah. He genuinely was the good person. And so I guess the advice from that is, like, if you're a dork, you need to be doing business with people that accept doing business with a dork. I have, and look where it's got me. You know, if I'm going to only pick people who don't want to do business with a dork, I'm going to have a real miserable time in business, no matter what that business is.
Yeah, that's where the authenticity comes from. That's where the authenticity comes from. I think about somebody that Warren and I know. We have a mutual friend in common, Shane Hunter, which is completely different than us. We all three have completely different personalities, and I promise you, my clients are not necessarily attracted to Shane, and vice versa. It's different personalities. But here's the thing: when Shane opens his mouth and he's talking with people, he knows that the people he's meant to serve resonate with him. The way he speaks and opens and starts a conversation. Each of us do something different. So if you're taking anything away from today's episode, this is the trusting of your gut. Be fully you. Don't use the lines that are in that book necessarily. It's a starting point. Or if you take something that Warren said or I said, it's a starting point. Is it congruent in your soul and in your heart? Would you say it in just those words, or would you put a few swear words on yours? Everybody's a little bit different, you know. And then I'll tease you with a couple of things today, because Warren, I think this would be fun to do another show, and because it's such a it's such a fun topic, I think. And I think there's so many things, like, you know, what are some other stupid things that you can say? Because, you know, people tend to like that. Is like, oh, what are the goofy things that you've seen? What are the dumbest things you've ever seen? And you're probably gathering is that some of the worst things to say and some of the goofiest things to say is something that you don't mean. Don't recognize someone for something that you don't really appreciate. Don't use lazy crap. Like, one of the things that I'm going to open the door on this one, and then we're going to leave it, is I personally, this is me, I think Warren might disagree, I think one of the most horrible, laziest opening lines is what do you do? You're leaving your personality. You're leaving things on the table with that one. I mean,
oh yeah, we could easily do a show just on what do you do.
Which is, how do you tell people? How do you tell people what do you do without sounding boring, like everybody else, silly? Yeah. How do you do that? Well, sure. Let's pick up on that.
Well, let's do that. Yeah, I'll tell you what the details are, but we'd go another half hour talking about that. Let's do a show on that. That's on the slate, and look for a show called "What Do You Do?" Coming soon to this very channel. And so for today, I'll leave you with an assignment to try what I do all the time. I'm sure I mentioned it on this show at least once. I go to the Costco, or this last one was the Sam's Club, and I try to say something to every checker and especially the audit person that's got to look at my receipt and tell me it's okay to leave, that I didn't steal anything. And I've tried so many different things. Got a new one yesterday. Reading the name tags, they're all on to that one. I tried, Maria had her name half worn out off of her name tag. So I asked her what happened to the other half of her name, and she actually stopped, checked out her name tag, looked back at me, and smiled, which is ultimately my goal on that. But hey, you want a good place to practice? Every day when you're out, you're talking to the person that waits on you at the restaurant, especially like the fast food, the toll booth operators, the person that hands you your order. Try a line, try to get them. And really, your first goal there is breaking them out of their routine, out of the trance, to smile or say something else. A goal of a smile is great. You're not looking for customers, and it doesn't matter, because 30 seconds later, you're going to be out of the drive-through, whether you say anything to them or not. Give it a try, and report back to us. If you get better than 1 out of 10 as a positive experience, you're doing good. And it's practice. It's like getting doors slammed in your face to learn how to sell door to door. We're not going to make anybody do anything that difficult. Just open your mouth and say hello, say something to somebody, and look for what breaks the pattern and what works for you. And with that, we'll wind it up, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Bye.